Hey everybody, welcome to the Darksliders podcast with Doug and Brad.
Hi.
This week we're going to continue our discussion of our favorite 100 games ever that we started in episode 31 2 weeks ago. The way we're going to do this is we just showed each other our list for 25 through 6. And kind of like we did in the last episode where we talked about this, we're going to pick out two or three games that we just kind of want to talk about from the other person's list. At this point, I don't know what games Doug picked from my list. He doesn't know which ones I picked from his. And then after we go through those 6, we'll go over our top 5s kind of at the end here to give you our 5 favorite games of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So, Doug, looking at your list,
Yeah.
this game was number 15 on your list, and I picked this out and I want to talk about it because I honestly have never even heard of a game that is your 15th favorite game ever, and I've never even heard of this game before.
That's fine.
Dystopia, which apparently is a PC game.
Dystopia is a Half-Life 2 mod.
Oh, well, that'd be why I've never heard
Yeah. So it's really funny. Like I feel like as soon as you say that, as soon as a Half-Life 2 mod, like the audience immediately shrinks to who this is going to be relevant to. Right now, I don't like going to mods so much. I know it's kind of a big scene now with like Skyrim and stuff, but I think it's something like when you're in high school and you have a lot of time in your hands to kind of dick around with that stuff. That it's a lot of fun. And Dystopia was like the game I played this actually a lot in college. It was a Half-Life 2 mod that I actually followed from like alpha release to beta release to final release over the course of like over like 2 or 3 years. This probably has the most unique multiplayer I still have ever played. There is no other multiplayer game that's as unique as this. And basically how it's played is that there's the real world. It's a cyberpunk game, and in the real world you have like light class, medium class, and heavy class, and like you are one side either defending a area or you're an opposing side trying to break into a compound. So that's kind of cool. So it's got this basic shooter thing, but there's this other aspect called hacking. And when you hack into computers, you actually play a game that's a lot similar, very similar to like Quake 3 Arena. So you have this like tactical shooter, but then when you're hacking stuff, it plays like Quake 3 where like there's like other hackers trying to shoot each other with like rail guns and stuff and trying to hack into areas to open doors for people in the real world. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so like your hacker, so like sometimes you'd be like sitting at a door like waiting for your hacker in cyberspace to open the door, but he's fighting a hacker, like 2 or 3 other hackers, and you don't know if the door is actually going to open or not until he like does his piece. So it takes a lot of coordination and stuff, and I really really love that game. And I don't know, it kind of just floundered after like it finally got released. Like it was really cool for like a few months, and then people just sort of forgot about it because everybody loves Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is definitely like seriously one of the best games I ever played. Oh my god, I put more. That's probably the most played multiplayer game I think I've like ever.
Wow.
I just really really loved it. It's super cool. But yeah, nobody played it, and this is why you haven't heard of it. Nobody else has.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah. Well, I feel like with those mods, there's like everybody kind of had their favorite couple back in the day. Or, well, I
Yeah.
guess for us, I mean, we've both kind of moved on from PC gaming for the most part. But I think back in the day, I think everybody kind of had their favorite mod or two for different games. So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. It's just now. It's just not worth the hassle because like getting those mods to work sometimes it just didn't work quite right, or you have to go through like alpha, beta, whatever. And I think that's fun if you have the time for it. But just now, it's just I just want my game to work, and then I want my game to be done and then working, and then I can just plug and play, and that's about it. So this next game, this is on a lot of people. This is the one I'm going to ask Brad. This is on a lot of people's list, and I never quite got the love for it, which is Red Dead Redemption.
Really?
That game bored the crap out of me.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't get it. I played that game. I got to all the way to Mexico, which I think is about halfway through the game, maybe.
Yeah, give or take a little bit.
Yeah, and I didn't the entire time. I didn't get it. I didn't feel it. I just wasn't feeling it.
I don't know. This is one of those games that I'm not sure why it's on my top 20 list. Because everything about this screams to me game that I wouldn't like. I mean, I've talked before that I'm not a big open world fan, and I'm really not that big of a person into westerns and stuff like that. So it's like two things I don't really care for, but there's just something about this game that I don't know. I loved it. I loved being able to sit there, and just the environments were so unique because you could go from like kind of the Old West. There were forests, there were mountains, there was kind of everywhere you could go through.
It was just a big desert. It wasn't like super unique.
But it was like out west, and that's what out west looks like. It's like Metal Gear Solid 5. Like that environment is very empty, but it's very unique to that setting.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I'll give you that.
But I don't know. There was just something about that game that it just everything about it made me really engage with it, and I just when I got it, I couldn't stop playing it, and it's one of those games that I still every now and then have feelings like, oh, I should go back and just play Red Dead Redemption for a little bit. I mean, this game is 4 or 5 years old at this point,
Yeah.
and I don't know. There's just something about it, and the way the towns were set up, and just the way the story unfolded with kind of your family involved with it, just everything worked really well. It's also one of the few games where I can say like the expansion pack or DLC or whatever. I think it might even have been called expansion pack at the time.
Yeah.
The Undead Nightmare just added a whole nother layer to it that was fantastic.
I should probably play that eventually.
Wait, you've never even played it?
No, I mean I played the original game. I just never played.
Oh, okay.
Because I got the Game of the Year edition or whatever. It came with Undead Nightmare. And
Yeah.
just never. I don't know.
No, it's one of those games that sitting down and playing it, just to me, it's what I feel like when I played that. It's what I think other people felt like when they play Grand Theft Auto. Because I'm not a big Grand Theft Auto guy at all.
Yeah, I
But
sort of realized neither of us have Grand Theft Auto in any way, shape, and form in our top 100. I don't think so anyway.
No, I don't. I considered Vice City because I played that a lot back in the day, but I'm not a Grand Theft Auto guy. There are very few. This is one of the few Rockstar games where I can sit down and go, yes, I love that game.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because Rockstar, I mean, if you look at Rockstar, they have great games, but it's just, I don't know, it's never a company or a developer that's really it's really clicked with me. But Red Dead Redemption, I don't know, there's just something about it, just something about the setting, the story, the way everything unfolds, the expansiveness of it. I mean, that was one of those games where I actually went through and did, okay, I gotta go hunt all the little rabbits, and I have to collect 10 of the little rabbits, and I have to, okay, so the cows are over here, so I gotta go kill 10 cows over here. It's so good.
See, that stuff all scared the shit out of me. That was like the go collect. I was like, ah, I really wish I liked the game. As I understand, like, it is super unique. And are you excited for? Would you be super excited for a second version, or is that like sort of you got that old west feel and now you're kind of done? Like, would you be excited for a sequel?
I would play a sequel, yeah. I mean, I still even have Red Dead Revolver, which is the
I
PS2
forgot, yeah.
first game in that series, technically. So, I don't know. I mean, I played that way back in the day on PS2, so maybe there's some connection that I liked that game, so I just went in assuming I would like this and did. But, oh yeah, I'd be ecstatic if they'd make a new Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. They gotta be.
The other game I want to talk about here, and I don't understand.
Yay.
Sonic All-Star Racing.
Oh my god. How is that not... It amazes me that's not on your list.
Why is that on your list is the better question.
I really like kart racer. You know what's really funny? I really like kart racer games, and I'm not a huge fan of Mario Kart.
See, and that was my thing, is this looks like the spot where, like, on my list, I think I've got Mario Kart somewhere relatively close to this. Yeah, I've got it, like, maybe 10 or 15 spots below it, but this seems like the spot where Mario Kart should go, and you have Sonic All-Stars Racing where Mario Kart should be.
Yeah, I actually have both, too. I have Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed and Sonic All-Star Racing, like, right next to each other. You know what it is? I don't even know why I like this game that much, because I don't even like Sega that much. Like, Sega's okay. I think Sega's alright. So it's like this super Sega version. You know what it is? I think the game is just, it plays super, super well to begin with. Like, a lot of car racers pretty much since Crash Team Racing haven't really clicked with me. And for whatever reason, this one just really clicked for me. Honestly, I think my favorite thing in the game is the environments. Like, the game is gorgeous.
It is a very, very pretty game.
Yeah, and honestly, like, the whole time I'm playing, I was like, man, I wish they would do this with, like, PlayStation or something I liked. Because, like... Because while I don't like those franchises, it was actually really cool to sort of learn about, say, like, it felt like I was kind of the same way if you play Super Smash Bros. There's going to be games there you don't know, so it's kind of cool, like, you're learning about these games. So Sonic All Stars Racing was really, really good at diving super deep into the Sega stuff, because, like, the guys who did it are, like, clearly Sega fans. One of the levels from All Stars Transformed, I think, is Burning Rangers, which was a Sega Saturn game. I don't think anybody played. I don't remember it. I
don't even know that.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it, but like I know the level is like this cool underwater lab thing. It is kind of neat too because it was on the 360. I played on PC, but it's from the 360 PS3 gen. It was a lot of these franchises were from like Sega Saturn or Sega Genesis or something like that. So seeing them with like PS3 and 3, it was like seeing remastered versions of these games that we'll never get, like Golden Axe. Like you got to see what the Golden Axe universe looked like on 360 and PS3. You got to see the Nights into Dreams, what that looked like on PS3. So there's a lot of just exciting aspects of it. And like on top of it all, it's just a really, really good kart racer that has really cool environments. I liked that I liked in the second game that like the course changed as you went through it. So like all 3 laps weren't the same. Like on the second and third lap, like something drastic would change in the environment. Yeah, I don't know. The game is just like honestly like one of the most perfect kart racer games I've ever played, and I don't know. Like it made me like Sega, and I don't. It's not that I don't like Sega. I just don't have any strong opinions of Sega. So that's kind of like that game.
Yeah, you're such a kart racer guy from back in the original PlayStation era, and this is the only modern one really outside of Mario Kart.
Yeah,
So just like it kind of blows everything out of the water just because it is. It's not even that it's unique. It's just that it's nobody else is doing kart racers right now.
yeah, and nobody's doing them as well. Like what it is,
Yeah,
there's like the untouchable Mario Kart series, and really the only one that ever came close was Crash Team Racing, but there really hasn't been one since. And kind of kart racing in general, sort of that throwaway one. Like there's Shrek Kart Racer, there's Nickelodeon Kart Racer. There's been a crappy.
there was a
kart
Star
racing.
Wars one.
Yeah, and they all suck. Bomba Racing
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever. And they're just bad. It's like, and this was like the first time somebody outside of Nintendo is like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make a good kart racer game, and they just made it. This game was way better than it should have, and I think too it helped with the developer. They did like traditional racing games as well. Like I think they did the Outrun.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's Sumo Digital, so they did like some like more. They said they actually did some like legit, just general racing games, and it was just clear that they were just huge fans of Sega. And I like it. I like when you can. This is one of those games like you can sort of feel that there was a lot of heart behind it. Like you can just feel it's like bleeding out of every pore. Now this one, I kind of know why it's on your list, but I actually don't know anything about this game because I didn't have a GameCube, and I just like I always think it's amusing when you talk about Star Wars. So Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rebel Leader. Now teach me about this game because I honestly don't know. I've never even played the Rogue Squadron games. So
Seriously?
yeah. I mean, I know people like these games, but yeah, like so just talk about Rogue Squadron because I just want to learn about this series.
So Rogue Squadron basically just has you going through like all the like classic battles that you would go through like through the Star Wars movies. Like pretty much every game starts out with like the trench run on the first Death Star, and you just go through all the different space battles from there. And there's of course like some like more expanded universe thrown in there just to kind of stretch the game out a bit. But it's not really a huge story heavy game. It's just I don't know. It's like picture in my mind. It's just like somebody got like flying space combat perfectly, and that was Rogue Squadron 2.
Oh, okay.
Like when you think like Ace Combat, you think of games like that. Rogue Squadron is that done perfectly in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
So it's more just even like a gameplay thing, and I think obviously for me like this would have been when I was like 13 at like the height of like Star Wars is the greatest thing that's ever been created by mankind. So that probably factors into it too. And like looking at, actually, as soon as you said Star Wars, I was like, crap, which one's he going to talk about? There's like 4.
There's a few Star Wars on here. The thing was, is like I had played KOTOR, and like I know everybody loves KOTOR. KOTOR's on his list. You guys can find our list on our website. And I knew a lot about KOTOR. I just didn't know anything about Rogue Squadron 2. It's a series that I kind of am mad that I missed because I played. Is the N64 one also Rogue Squadron, and this is just Rogue Squadron 2?
So there's 3. There was the N64 one that was Rogue Squadron. Then the GameCube had Rogue Squadron 2, Rebel Leader, and Rogue Squadron. I don't think they put a 3 after, but I believe it was called Rebel Strike. Space combat done perfectly. A lot of it is just kind of like that, just fly all over this place, like shoot what you need to. It's all just, it's laid out perfectly. The controls are that perfect. Like I feel like most space games, flight games, that same kind of style thing, it's either overly complicated or overly simple.
Yeah.
And this just nails that middle point of, yeah, you can just kind of go through it with the basics, but you can really get good at like exactly how these ships maneuver. You could fly, I mean, like if you name a ship from the Star Wars universe, it was in here, and each one controlled vastly different than the others.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I mean, that's what I was playing. I think we both were playing Battlefront, and when I was playing there's a part where I actually got to play as like one of the ships, and I was thinking, I was like, I feel like this is done better, like somewhere else. And I think like Rogue Squadron is probably that game where there's just done much like that sort of like flight is just was done much better.
I mean, they tried over and over again back in the age of the good old days of like 8 Star Wars games a year.
Gross. Why do you keep saying that? Those weren't good. None of those.
Because in my mind they were great.
No, they weren't. They weren't great.
They were.
There's a few. There's a few that rose above like the putrid mess of meat. None of them were bad. They're just mediocre.
It happened this way every year. There were like 2 or 3 like, that was kind of fun. If that didn't say Star Wars on the box, I'd never touch it.
Yeah.
And then there was like always every single year had that like one standout one that was like, holy crap, that's good.
That's true.
And yeah,
like the one.
Yeah, the couple that are in my top 25 here. But they tried it again over and over again. So the Xbox 360, or no, it was original Xbox PS2 era had Starfighter and Jedi Starfighter, which were supposed to be like the episode 1, 2, and 3 continuation of Rogue Squadron. And
Yeah.
just there was just never the same thing there. It never hit that sweet spot of like this controls well, it looks good, it plays well, it's fun, but it's also got that depth to it. They never came close again.
Oh, okay. So you think there's like the pinnacle of the series? Is the N64 one on your list anywhere, or is that just like this is just so much better than that? That's not even.
This was the one that stuck out to me when I think Rogue Squadron. So I just went with that one because I probably could have put all three on here, but that was the one that just in my mind stuck out as being the one that I remember sinking the most time into. Last one from your list that I want to talk about, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on this because we've talked about it several times on here before, and that is Metal Gear Solid 5. This is your 12th favorite game of all time,
Yeah.
and you have not finished this game,
No.
and you bitched like crazy about this game at multiple points.
Yeah, no, there's a ton of stuff I hate about it too.
How can you sit here and say, my 12th favorite game of all time, there is so much I don't like about it?
Because I think there's like games to me have always been like for a good game you need a good mix of story and graphics and gameplay. And this one just nailed the graphics and gameplay like just so much better than any other game I've ever played in my life. And I liked it mostly because Crisis is also on here, pretty high up. Crisis is one of my favorite games ever, and I remember when I first played that, I was like, "There's no other game that's like this." And I thought, like, a lot of people had said Crisis was going to be the future of shooters, but then Call of Duty kind of took over and everything sort of became linear again.
Yep.
Even Crisis became linear.
Oh yeah, like Crisis 3 is just, ugh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so and Crisis 2 is the same thing. It's just like this huge step back from like the big step forward that Crisis took, which was, attack a base from any angle. So Metal Gear Solid 5 took this gameplay I already sort of liked, and people hadn't really played with too much because I think it's really complicated to do. And it just did it better than any of, like, Metal Gear Solid 5 gameplay-wise is the best, like, third-person shooter ever made. I'd even put it, like, better than first-person shooters. It's the best shooter that's ever been made. Like, easily. Just gameplay mechanics. But
Agreed.
The story sucks. Story sucks.
And that's curious to me that you went that route with it. Because I'm trying to think. I have Metal Gear Solid 2 is my 7th favorite game of all time. Metal Gear Solid 1 is 24.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember if I kept Metal Gear Solid 5 in my top 100.
I can totally understand. Like, I believe
just because I was so put off by that story. That story is so bad, and it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't conclude, and it's so bad and I think it's probably one of those things where, like, if we were to do this a year from now, having not just finished it, just been super irritated with it, I probably would have it in there. But just coming right off it, I can't consider that one of my top 100 games because there's so much I don't like about it.
The thing is like the stuff I really didn't like about it didn't happen until halfway through the game. So everything,
but nothing happened in the first half of the game.
No, that's true. That's true too. I mean, I'm not gonna like fight this too much. But I don't know. I felt like the 30 hours or 20, I don't remember, 20 or 30 hours I played the game, I just thought were amazing. It was just so good. Just the gameplay itself. Because it was just a game that, like, every time you played, you could just play totally different. It just was a game that had a lot of experimentation, things like that. And it just sucked in so many other ways, and I can understand why people wouldn't like it. But mine is always, what was my experience with the game at the end of all these things, even with all these issues, it was still one of the best games I've ever played. So that's why a lot of these games a lot of games on my list anyway, there's a lot of them have huge glaring issues that I really hated. There are certain aspects of some of these games that I just straight up hated. But the other parts were so good that sort of like shined out any bad aspects of it. And honestly, I didn't finish Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, I'll say that. I got halfway through Chapter 2 before I was just like, it's just the same thing I've been playing for the last 30 hours. But those first 30 hours were really, really good. And man, I don't know.
I guess I can see it. It's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I can't. And again, I think mine is just, it's got that Mass Effect 3 thing that I think a lot of people had, where it's like, that ending was so bad. This is the worst game ever. And like 6 months later, it was like, it was okay. It was fine.
Yeah, like, from what I understand, like, I haven't played Mass Effect 3. I played 2, but from what I understand, like, Mass Effect 3, like, everything, like, that game is, like, really, really good, like, mechanics wise. Like, it's like the best in the series.
Oh yeah.
But everybody remembers the ending. But that's fair to say, though, because it's like however you experience the game, it could be the story can affect you that much where you're saying, this game's story was so bad that it ruined the experience for me. But to me, I think there was a certain point when I got over the fact that the story was just not going to be very good and the boss battles were not going to be very good, and just to enjoy the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then once I got to that point, I was like, okay, I really, really love this game. So
I can understand that.
Yeah. So last one I'm going to talk with you about This is another game I just don't know a lot about, but I know a lot of people played, was Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars.
Yeah.
Okay, but first question is, I don't see any Paper Mario on here, unless Paper Mario is in your top 5 or something like that.
I played only the first Paper Mario, the one on N64. That's the only one I've ever played. And I don't know. I don't remember having great memories of that. I don't even know if I finished it, but I don't know. I never got into Paper Mario. But Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars is a phenomenal game. Like, if somebody says, like, what is, like, a classic game from, like, your childhood, that is one of the first things that pops into my mind is Super Mario RPG. Like, in my mind, like, I think I only beat it maybe once or twice, but, like, it was one of those games where I played the first little bit so many times. I don't even know why, but I feel like I played, like, the first, like, 3 hours of that game, like, 20 times.
Serious? Whoa.
Yeah, like, I don't know why, but, like, I can still, in my mind, like, map out, like, the opening castle where you go in, and there's the cake, and you've got to fight the giant sword, and then you leave the giant sword, and then you go into the forest, and you meet Geno, and you meet Bowser, and, like, I have this whole thing, like, mapped out in my mind, like, this whole game. Like, I spent so much time with that game. It's ridiculous. And that game was kind of my introduction to turn-based combat, and I've always, like, really, really enjoyed turn-based combat, and to me, it all goes back to that game, as that's where I got my start with turn-based combat. That was my, like, turn-based combat for dummies game.
No, that's true. I mean, yeah, I can see that. That game was like I was surprised because I didn't know a lot about the game, so I've just only seen videos and stuff of it. But it was made by Squaresoft. Like, that was like the original sort of Kingdom Hearts kind of thing, where it's like Squaresoft's making a Mario game. But I think that is kind of cool. Like, the guys who are like the kings of RPGs made an RPG that has like for kids, basically. Not that Final Fantasy isn't for kids, but that was like a good introduction to bring these like familiar characters. From what I understand, they actually took they had a lot of like weird characters as well that they added that never showed up again in the Mario verse.
Yeah, my guy Geno.
Yeah, people always talk about Geno. He's like a puppet guy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Geno is great. Geno is awesome. I don't know. And it's also one of those games, too, because at this point in the Mario universe, that was, I feel like, the first time you got to play as Bowser.
Oh, I could see that.
Because Bowser could join your party, because, like, they kicked Bowser out of... These guys are so bad, they kicked Bowser out of Bowser's castle. So it's like, now Bowser's like, screw it, dude. I'll help you. I got to get my castle back.
That's actually pretty cool. That's one of those games I've always like wanted to play. Like because I missed out on the Super Nintendo era. I don't know how to do that legally without.
You can get it on the Wii Virtual Console for, I believe, $4.99.
I'll get an NX one of these days.
Like when it's a thing.
Yeah, when it exists, I'll probably get it. I need to get a Nintendo console. I just never had a Nintendo console. That's like when I look at my list, it's like, there's like two Mario games on here, or 2 Nintendo games total. Like, I know they're good games, I just didn't have a Nintendo console.
Yeah, and that was shocking to me at first until I realized that, because I'm looking at mine and like Super Mario World, Super Mario 64, Super Mario RPG, Super Smash Bros, Rogue Squadron. Like, there's so many Nintendo exclusives up there because Nintendo just makes awesome games. But
some of us were only able to choose one console when we were growing up.
Some of us. Yeah, we'll not get into that. Never mind.
Yeah, anyway. You were the cool kid with like 10 consoles. Yeah, anyway. Not jealous.
We won't get into that. But anyway, we want to kind of not necessarily wrap this up. We still got a lot left.
Oh, yeah.
We want to keep going here with our top 5. So I'm going to have Doug go through his 5, 4, 3, and 2 games here. And we'll save our number ones for right at the very end. But 5 through 2, and I haven't seen these. I don't know what these are at all. He doesn't know mine, but we'll go Doug's first. So top 5.
Top 5. Number 5.
Ooh, dramatic.
Yeah. I was like when they do the game trailers top 10, and they always say that guy.
Dude, that dude has such a good voice.
That guy has an awesome voice. Number 1. So, number 5. Trackmania 2 Stadium. Love me some Trackmania. I've probably said this before, but my top game of E3, like that E3, like, the most recent one, they had like, Last Guardian, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Shenmue 3, Kingdom Hearts 3 was my top game was literally the new Trackmania coming onto consoles.
And that doesn't surprise me at all.
I've put maybe 2. There's some people. This is one of those weird things. Like I put 200 hours in that game, but I know people put like thousands of hours into other games. But I don't play games like a single game for very long. I like playing as many. I like trying to get as many experiences as possible. So I don't like putting too much time into a game. But that one was just, oh my god, and I got really good at it too. It's just really really fun. It's strictly game. It's really interesting because like all of the games on here, I have very few games that are like strictly gameplay oriented. That are not strictly gameplay. They always have like a good story attached with it. But this one's just strict gameplay, and I don't know. There's just something so addicting about it. But yeah, that new Trackmania, everybody like seriously, if you don't know what Trackmania is, which I assume is like a vast number of people, uh, Track. I would wait until the console version comes out in case you've never played it. But if you're like kind of impatient, just like want to see what the game is, it is on PC. I played Trackmania 2 Stadium. I would just say get Stadium because that's the only one I played. And I played that for, like I said, 200 hours. Just get that one. Don't worry about the other ones. If you like it, then you can buy the other ones. It's super complicated. It was really stupid how they released it. But yeah, no, Trackmania 2 Stadium. Yeah. Even now I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh, I can't wait for that to come out on PS4. I got this smile on my face. Like, it's really funny.
The way normal people look at when they're talking about like kids, wife, girlfriend. Yeah. Doug has that look on his face right now talking about Trackmania.
Oh, that's sad. Number 4. Darksiders 2.
Really?
Yeah. This is another game I acknowledge that has a ton of problems.
Yes, it does.
But this to me is like, it's really weird. Even looking at the other games that are above it, this is like the perfect game for me that I always sort of had in my head as a kid. I really really like stylish action games, like like Devil May Cry. Like the whole Devil May Cry series is on here in some form. Actually, except for 3. And I just recently been playing DMC, and I really really love those games. The thing I really really hate about those games, and even like the best ones like Ninja Gaiden, Bayonetta, they all have this, is that they're just arenas. It's just arena after arena after arena. There's no puzzles. Yeah. There's no anything. And you kind of, and like in my head, I always sort of excused it as like, oh, well, they need a lot of that memory because there's so many moves for your character. It's like a fighting game. Like they can't just do big arenas. And then Darksiders 2 came out, and Darksiders 2 is an open world game that has stylish action, which is crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Darksiders 1 is also on my list somewhere. Darksiders 1 played a lot like... It was much simpler. It played a lot more... I would say more like God of War. I would say it played better than God of War, but it was a little bit simpler. But Darksiders 2 kind of like went full-on stylish action. So I really, really like that aspect. The combat I love. I think it's the best combat. I think it's like literally the best combat of any game I've ever played. Especially, these are the games you also have to play on like really, really hard difficulty because they're kind of skewed because they... If you've played Devil May Cry before or Bayonetta, you should definitely play these on hard, like the hardest difficulty. But yeah, besides the stylish, so stylish action is now an open world, which is cool. I like that there's puzzles. I never really got into Zelda. I like Wind Waker, but I was never really big into Zelda. And the thing I didn't like about Zelda was that I didn't like the combat very much. I thought it was like too simple.
And again, you missed all the Nintendo growing up, so you don't have that nostalgia factor for Zelda.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, like Twilight Princess is the only game that's ever made me throw a controller. I know I've said that before, but seriously, putting roll and the use button on the same thing is ridiculous. It's so stupid.
Oh, God, I've heard, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's A. Oh my God, I'm mad about it now. But I like Zelda likes. Like I really like Okami. And this is kind of like a Zelda-like. It takes the inspiration from Zelda, but isn't held. But I feel like Zelda is sometimes held back by having to be a Zelda game, so it has to have certain combat aspects, it has to have certain this. But this one just didn't. So they could do whatever they wanted. So you can have an M-rated game where you're cutting guys in half and fighting like demon skeletons and making deals with the devil and stuff because it's just it's not a kid's game. I really like that aspect, and I guess the last thing I want to say about it is the art is, oh my God. I love the art in this game. I really like it in Darksiders 1 as well. It's by Joe Mad. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. He's a comic book artist guy. A lot of people said, oh wow, this game looks like World of Warcraft. It's like, no, World of Warcraft looks like the art from this guy. He's the guy who basically started sort of the exaggerated armor, the big swords.
Huh.
And the really colorful art. And the reason I really like this one is because it reminded me of like what I thought PS2 era games would look like on the next gen PS3 and 360. like Jack and
Mm-hmm.
Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, that sort of cartoony art style, because it's kind of cartoony and it's really really colorful, which is kind of weird for that era because a lot of games like
Yeah,
not
it's
not
super unique in its art style.
yeah, and I just really loved how colorful it was and just so that's pretty much what I liked. It's just a really colorful game with really really cool looking characters that are I don't know. I love that game. Sorry, we were only supposed to talk about like two or three of our top five, but that's not going to happen. I'm talking about all these.
The 4-hour podcast brought to you by Doug.
Well, okay. I mean, I can keep going. Do you want to talk about yours? Like do you want to talk about your 5 or 4? Because I'm going to keep going.
No, keep going. Keep going.
All
We'll
right,
just
all
get
right.
through. You got 2 left. You're halfway there, Doug.
I got 2
You
left.
can do this.
Yeah, but okay, one of these is a game I don't shut up about anyway. Number 3 is Crash Team Racing. So, yeah.
I'm going to be honest and you're going to yell at me. I've never played Crash Team
That
Racing.
Well, that's no. You had a PlayStation. You have no excuse.
I did have a PlayStation, yes.
Crash Team Racing would not be on here. Actually, well, okay. When I was like, this is like one of those games I played as a kid, and I was always telling people it's like I was a PlayStation like fanboy kid for a long time. I just had PlayStations. I had to justify the fact that I owned one. So I was always like kind of like a huge like fanboy. I was like, oh man, Crash is way better than Mario. But in my head, I knew Mario was better than Crash. And I really love Spyro, but I knew Mario was still better than Spyro. But this one, Crash Team Racing is better than Mario Kart. It is better than most Mario Karts. Probably not the new ones. The new ones are really good.
See, and that's funny because that's the reason I never touched it because in my mind I was like, it's just Mario Kart. I already have Mario Kart. Why would I play this? Mario Kart's probably way better than this.
It's not. Well, it's way better than at least the N64 version. People like to play the N64 version. Like when I get like a group of friends together, like, oh man, let's play N64 games. Man, Mario Kart sucks. Mario Kart 64 at least just sucks. But I bought with some friends. We had like a sort of a joint PS3, and Crash Team Racing came out on like PSN. I was like, oh, this will be cool. Let's play some Crash Team Racing. That game holds up, like 100% holds up, which kind of surprised me. I thought there'd be some like the graphics, kind of like Mega Man Legends. Like it has a unique enough art style that it really works with that like limited palette. So the graphics are great. The controls are amazing. It's really, really skill based, and it's really damn difficult. I don't know. This is Oh, the one thing I really like about this game that like no kart racer. Well, actually, no, Diddy Kong Racing did it. I love that it has a hub world, which is super cool.
Huh.
So like you have to drive to these portals that are in the races. You start in this hub world that's sort of like the beach areas of Crash Bandicoot, and you move to an Arctic hub world, and you move to a space hub world, and then you move to
cool.
yeah, it's really really cool. It's got a lot of stuff and that's kind of why I played like All Star Racing Transformers. Much as I love that game, it doesn't have a hub world, and it
No, you
doesn't
just go
have
through, like the tournaments or whatever.
yeah. Not that it matters. It's just like and Crash Team Racing actually had a story. Like there's like a new character comes to take over the land, and then they have to sort of team up with Dr. Neo Cortex, and I really like that game. And I was just surprised, like again, that it's one of the few PlayStation games I've played that really, really holds up. And like if you like hear people talk about this game, like, oh, they just had a PlayStation thing, it's better than Mario Kart. It is better than Mario Kart. I don't think that it's going to be better than Mario Kart 8. It's definitely not. But just from a strict gameplay standpoint, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. A lot of unlockables too. A lot of cool unlockables. You can unlock like 10 characters. No, not that many characters. 8 characters or something like that. And some are really, really hard to unlock. Kind of like Tekken 3, where you had just some of the characters like almost impossible to unlock unless you're really, really good at the game. And it does that. That's like I guess that's the last thing. I just like that it really rewards you for being really good at the game, and it really requires you to be pretty damn good. All right, number 2 actually.
Nice.
Yeah. So number 2. I don't have a good voice for that.
No, you don't.
Neither of us have a very good speaking voice for this sort of stuff when we have a podcast. Anyway.
We're both really shitty to listen to. Let's make people listen to us for an hour every week.
Yeah, kind of. Whatever. No, I like to talk. Number 2 is Bloodborne.
Oh.
Okay. We'll talk about Castlevania later, but the fact that you like Castlevania and not Bloodborne is absolutely insane. That's all I'm going to say.
Be fair, that
nope, nope.
To be fair, that one Castlevania game that we were playing, which is Dracula X, is starkly different from a lot of other Castlevanias.
Infuriating. It's infuriating. It's not good. I think I've talked enough about Bloodborne on the podcast.
Yes.
Wait, but I do want to say one thing. This won't be long, I promise. Bloodborne, I really think is one of the best games of all time. And I think it's really, really exciting that there's a PlayStation 4. There's like a next-gen game that I would already consider one of my favorite games of all time. I think that there's sort of, kind of, we've talked on podcasts before, it takes a long time for a gen to sort of warm up, and like we're not really going to see many good games at first, then we're going to see some really good games. Bloodborne was kind of like in the first year, and I still like literally think that's one of the best games I've ever played. And just, it's got the combat that's really good. It's got some like light RPG elements. It's not super heavy in the RPG elements, which is nice. It's just got a really, really cool art style, really cool enemies. Just there's a lot. It has a huge exploration aspect. I don't know, just like checks off like literally every box I have with the game.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I will give the game aesthetically, it is one of the coolest games I've ever played.
Yeah. Why don't you play more?
Other than that, I will not say much. Because this is about your favorite games and not your least favorite games. And not games you wasted $60 on only to get furious.
Whatever. If you played more of that game, I think, yeah. I will say the game is literally not for anybody. I hate when people say it's like, oh, I'm kind of new to action RPGs. What should I play? And somebody says Dark Souls. No. Dark Souls is...
Don't be dumb.
No, the Soul series is not for everybody. If you like Bloodborne, just realize that it's not for everybody. It's really hard. It's really unfriendly.
Yeah, Doug, you know what? You should realize that game's not for everyone. Like, maybe the person you're talking to right now that you keep saying you should play more of this.
No, you're ridiculous. Because you play too many games. No, I would say the game's not for everybody. For like people who don't play games, like I would not recommend it to somebody who's like, hey, I've decided to move on from Call of Duty and Madden. No, but somebody who's played who has Super Mario RPG and KOTOR and Castlevania Aria of Sorrow in their top games, like these kind of weird these aren't really obscure. But I know
Star Wars, Mario, and Castlevania, 3 giant franchises, those damn obscure games.
God dang it. Aria of Sorrow is pretty... Aria of Sorrow, that one specifically. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like... There are aspects of that game I know you would love, and I think you should give it a second chance. And it takes a while to learn, and it can be really unfriendly. But yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah. So that's it. And I guess we'll save my number one for later. So Brad, what's your top? I don't think you're gonna talk as long as you might talk as long as I do. Hopefully. So
nope.
I don't look like such an asshole.
I never do. So my top 5 here, I will say that I cheated on 2 of these because I couldn't decide, and this would be a really boring top 5 if I didn't cheat. And also I noticed, like, as I was going through this, these were all games that, like, I had a good experience with. So you kept talking about, like, gameplay and things like that. These are games that, like, I have, like, really fond memories of for specific reasons. So my number 5 game, and I'm not even going to bother trying to say it in the dumb way, is Gears of War. And I wrote Gears of War, parentheses, 1 through 3. Because... I love Gears of War. 2 would probably be in my mind, like, if I had to pick, like, a placeholder, that would be the one I would go with. But yeah. Gears of War was, oh my gosh, like, I loved Gears of War for the longest time. And every time, like, I look at Gears of War, like, the re-release, or I don't remember if it's a remake or remaster, but every time I walk past, I'm like, man, I need an Xbox One. I could totally play Gears of War again. That game was so good. But I don't know, there was just the way these games worked. And I know
that is a remake, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Stop making it more that I need an Xbox One. But anyway, these games, like, I think at this point kind of get, like, hammered on because, like, oh, it's just cover-based shooting, and it's that gray aesthetic, and it's just big, giant guy. But when this first came out, I mean, this was kind of the first game that really did cover shooting well. There were a couple games before that had it, but this was kind of the game that really nailed that down. And it was really kind of unique to Gears of War, and it was a very different way to play a shooter than a lot of what you've seen before. Because there were a couple of games that came out before it that had it, but it never really worked quite right. It was always kind of wonky. This was the first game that I felt like really nailed what that style of gameplay was. And then as the series went on, when they introduced Horde mode, which is basically... Again, I don't know if it was the first game to do it, but it was the first game that really made it this massive thing, a massive part of it. Just that when that came out, and just to the point where like everybody has copied this at that point. Like most shooter games at this point have some variety of that
Yeah.
in some form. But like I remember sitting in like one of my really good friends in high school. We'd sit in his basement and we'd hook up like 3 Xboxes. Like we'd each bring like a TV with us, and we would sit there and play through like 100 rounds of Horde mode and just see how far can we get through this. You're this. I mean, like we literally would sit in his basement for hours just trying to like get high scores in Horde mode, and just I don't know, just like the thought of that, just like it's so much fun that like I really want to just like call these people up that like I'm still friends with, but like, you know, don't hang out with like every day like I used to in high school. Be like, you should just bring your old Xbox over. We should just get Gears of War and play Gears of War more.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun. I don't know. It kind of gets a bad rap just because like, yeah, it's a shooter. It's, you know, it's all those things that kind of people get like the hits on it for. But if you really look back to when it started, I feel like it was started out as something that was originally unique, and it was so unique that a lot of things started taking from it.
Yeah, I like that like on our podcast we can talk about stuff like Broken Age and like these really kind of obscure, kind of smaller games. And like at the end of the day, still your top five is like Gears of War. I know there's another big franchise on there. I don't know. I like that because like it is kind of cool. Like there's like just these big franchises that like people sort of now they just aren't as popular. But like it's like you guys like I think a lot of younger people too. Like you guys don't understand these games were like cutting edge. Like it wasn't just like a new way of playing it. These weren't just like big franchises. Like Call of Duty is kind of a big franchise, but it's been doing kind of the same thing forever. Gears of War was like a totally different way of playing games.
Yeah.
I remember I didn't like it so much. Like when I think I played like once or twice when I was like, what the hell's cover? What is that? What did I have to do? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, and I think, and when Gears of War came out, everybody had that same feeling of like, oh, oh, there's only like 8 guys in front of me. Like, screw this. Like, I'm just gonna run in and shoot. And it's like, oh, there's 8 guys there. I can't just run in and shoot. I can shoot at them. I need to slow this down. I need to think through this. So my number 4 game, I didn't do this intentionally, but I just realized it and I really like it, is Resident Evil 4.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, hell yeah, it's a good one. Did you play this?
Yeah, no, I really do like this game. I don't know why I didn't throw it in my top 100. I thought it didn't really. There's certain things I look for in games that just didn't have. It didn't really have like a really cool art style, and the enemies were kind of cool. The gameplay is great though. Although it's funny, you were kind of aping me before about MGS5's story. Resident Evil 4 story like just sucks.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. This is one of those games where this was probably the first ever like horror game I played.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was like growing up, like I was not into like all that like horror stuff, anything that had to do with that. Like I was like hardline like spaceships. That's what I wanted. I wanted spaceships.
Yeah.
Monsters. I don't care about monsters. I want spaceships.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like my first kind of experience with like zombies. With they had like the plague guys whose heads exploded and the big tentacle things popped out, and it had just giant boss battles, and just the gameplay was so perfect. It was so tight. It was just, I don't know. It was one of those things where just it stuck with me, and it was kind of my first experience with this, whereas I feel like it might not be quite as big of a deal for some people just because, oh yeah, I played Resident Evil 1, I played Resident Evil 2, I played Resident Evil 3. It's kind of the same idea. This was my first one, and I didn't really have that background like horror knowledge that a lot of other people I feel like had coming into it.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. That game was kind of cool. That's like another one of those big paradigm shifting games. Like that was like third person shooting done really damn well.
Oh hell yeah, that done really well. And I actually just bought the Resident Evil remake last week, so it was on sale on PSN, and been playing that on my PS4. And it's like, whew, I'm glad I didn't play this one first, because this one probably would have thrown me off, and I probably never would have touched Resident Evil 4. That game is frustrating me like nobody's business right now.
It's really funny because a lot of people, I think everybody kind of acknowledges Resident Evil 4 is a good game, but it's like definitely not a Resident Evil game. Like in many, many ways, it's barely a Resident Evil game.
And this, I feel like this was kind of the downward shift for that franchise away from what it started out as.
Yeah.
Is they're like, oh man, this game had big action pieces in it. This game had like, we can just do that instead?
Yeah.
People like that? All right, fine, screw it. Resident Evil 5, here you go.
Yeah, it is funny. It is funny because I think the mechanics of Resident Evil 5, even Resident Evil 6, are probably better than Resident Evil 4. It's just like they just don't have that. They don't. I don't. There's something about the pacing or the level design or something about Resident Evil 4 that just still keeps it like way, way above the pack of everything else that's come after it.
Yeah, but anyway, it's just kind of a classic, and I was just floored by it at the time. And I haven't gone back and actually, I don't even know if I've played this since I played it on GameCube like 10 years ago now, but I was just floored by it at the time.
It's still pretty damn good. I played it semi recently again. That gameplay is like impeccable. It's still, I think it still plays better than Dead Space. I think is probably the best version of that type of gameplay, but it still plays better than a lot of other games.
Number three, I feel like you're gonna laugh at me for this one. Rock Band 2.
No, I can understand that. I'll give you that one.
That
I was
game,
around during
dear
that. I was
God.
around that time.
Yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, we were living together when that game came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know how much ungodly amount of time I put into that beast.
I think we
I don't
met.
know.
I think we met because of Rock Band too. Like, not even kidding.
Probably, probably. That's kind of how things went in our dorm at college. Was we're playing Rock Band. Come here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, no, that game just. I don't know. I love music, and I was into like Guitar Hero and all that stuff before this too. And just when that game came out, and just again, like we're talking about like experiences and things like that, and Doug kind of hit on this. I remember in our like little like 12 by 12 dorm room that I shared with like a roommate,
Yeah.
there being like 8 of us in there, like rotating in and out instruments, like with 4 people singing into a microphone, like all of this different stuff. Just and it's just that like huge experience thing where it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. Like I mean, I would sit down and I got to the point where I could do expert vocals, expert drums, expert guitar, all that stuff. But like even before that point, it's just even if you're screwing up like crazy, it's just so much fun to do with people.
Yeah. I think that game now. I think if I that's like a weird one too because I don't think if you bought and played that game now, it would be on the top 100 games of all time. Like right now, if some kids want to buy Rock Band 2, maybe probably wouldn't because but it was like that time and place. Like Rock Band in college is the best way to play Rock Band.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I will sit. I mean, I sat around and played it for hours on end by myself, but there's just nothing like sitting there with a group of like 4 to 10 people and playing Rock Band. It was
Yeah.
so unique, and it was just this never before seen thing. Well, not even never before seen. I mean, you had Guitar Hero, but it was just it opened it up to so many people, and it was just I don't know. There was just something about it in that 3 years where these like plastic instrument games dominated video games. It was
Yeah.
just the highlight of that time.
Yeah, that's gonna be a hard thing to explain. I feel like in video game history that'll be like mentioned to be like a really hard thing to explain. Like, why'd you guys like those plastic
Oh yeah,
instrument games suck? It's like, well, no, it's like I mean, yeah, they were okay. I mean, they're just like you're basically hitting notes. They're just basic rhythm games. But man, just the culture of the time and man, some good
it was
times.
huge. Oh, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Number two, we've talked about this one on the podcast, so I don't go into it too much. Final Fantasy X,
Yeah.
just in my mind, the definition of a perfect JRPG, a perfect turn-based RPG. The story is great, the characters are great, the gameplay is great, the
Yeah.
pacing's great. Just it's in my mind like a pretty much flawless game.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like I don't think I've tried to get into other turn-based games, but for whatever reason, like I just don't find them nearly as fun as Final Fantasy X. But even 10, we were talking before, like I was saying before, like my list, I have Final Fantasy X somewhere on there that like there's major flaws like Blitzball, like F Blitzball, or
Oh yeah, I always played the remaster a month or two ago, and I completely skipped over that whole thing. I played my one mandatory game, and went, not going back to that.
yeah, but it's still the best game of all. It's still like your favorite game ever.
Oh, absolutely, and it's just I can't say other than Blitzball, like I can't, which again is just more or less a mini game. I can't say a negative thing about it. I love that game,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean even just going, I think, and even going back and replaying it just like 4 or 5 months ago with the remaster, like it still is my favorite game. It's still in my mind the perfect turn-based game. In my mind, it's what every other turn-based game when I go into it, I'm like, this is gonna be Final Fantasy X, or is it just gonna be another turn-based game? Like those are the distinctions. It's like Final Fantasy X or just general turn-based game.
Yeah, I
But
don't even know what it is about that game that makes it so damn good.
I don't either. Because I mean, even other Final Fantasies. I mean, I've played 7, I've played 8, I've played 9, I've played a couple of the other ones. I've played 13.
Yeah.
Like, just none of them hit that same sweet spot that that one did, and just I don't know. It's just so good.
Yeah, I think it also has a really simple story for a Final Fantasy game, which is
That
actually
is very true.
yeah, which is
Let's
nice
go kill
though.
Sin,
Yeah.
and Sin is kind of your dad. The end.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean like there's still some like really hard-hitting points in that game. I think it was just I think like when I'm thinking like I think for fan favorites kind of like Final Fantasy VII. Like there's some really weird story aspects to that with like
Oh yeah,
he's not actually Cloud, he's actually has the memories of his friend who sort of did this thing, and then you see there's just a lot of complex. There's a lot of like I feel like unnecessary complexity to it. And in Final Fantasy
hmm
X, it was a simple story. So like when the hard hitting points came, you didn't really have to think about them. They just like came and they hit like a brick. Like the
yeah,
the summoner like when you figure out why you're going on this trip and what happens to
yeah.
Yuna. It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah, and like I remember like being like 12 and playing the game and be like, what?
yeah,
But I don't know, and it also just that one's just so character driven too. I feel like the other Final Fantasies, and just in my mind, I'm thinking of 12 and 13 in particular because those are the most recent ones in my mind. There's so much more like world driven, and there's all these big events, and there's all these different like entities that are all factoring into what's going on.
yeah,
It didn't have that. It's the entire world is united against this one big thing. And yeah, one or two groups differ on how to approach that, but
mhm,
everybody's to the same goal. There's no like, oh, well, do those people not like these people and these people are doing this? And like, why would you believe that? It's just,
yeah.
this is the issue in the world. Let's take care of it.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. That is kind of cool. That's actually one of those things too that felt like a cataclysmic end. I think a lot of JRPGs like they'll go to a certain town and everybody's like, "Yay, we're the happy town folks." But in this one, like everybody is aware of sin and everybody is like aware the world is kind of on the brink of ending. And like
Yeah.
every single town you go to, like they acknowledge that in some way. And then, man, I forgot how
Yeah.
much I like that game. I should put that in my top 10.
I
Where is
think I
it?
win if I convince you to change your top 10.
Maybe. Although, like, I'm like, well, yeah, shit, that was pretty good. It's 22. I mean, it's not. It should definitely be above Journey, though. I should have put it above Journey.
We can sit here and go through the fact that it should also be ahead of Yakuza 4.
No!
And
I like Yakuza 4 a lot. Yeah, we didn't talk about that. I actually they were going to talk about it. Yakuza 4 is like number 9 in my top 10 games.
I was debating that because I don't even know if I told you. I played that for about 2 hours and it's already deleted off my PS3.
That is disgusting. That
It
game
was
is
so
amazing.
bad.
It's
I
so
couldn't do
fun.
it.
It's so fun. I will agree
Couldn't
that
do
that
it.
game like
All right, let's wrap
that
this
game
up.
just that game yeah. Sorry. That game just strikes a weird chord with me. Okay, so I guess we're gonna start talking about number ones.
Number one game of all time.
Yeah. My number one game of all time is Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts 2.
Kingdom Hearts 2. No. Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix.
What the hell's the difference?
Oh my god. There's such a big
Oh,
difference.
damn it. Why the hell did I do that? I'm
Okay.
gonna pretend I didn't say that.
All right, no, just 1 sec. Okay. Quick I'll do a quick history with Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts 1 I bought maybe within the first month of Shut up for a sec. Hey, if you can talk about Gears, come on, let me talk. It's a
I'm just
podcast.
giving you crap. I'm giving you crap. It's fine.
Yeah.
Go for it.
All right, so Kingdom Hearts 1, I think I bought within the first month. I actually had followed that through like PlayStation magazines and stuff. And when I finally got it, that was like one of those first games that like met all of my expectations as a kid. And I liked Disney at the time, and the thing was with Kingdom Hearts, I've mentioned this a few times. Kingdom Hearts was what I always wanted from Final Fantasy games. I don't like turn-based combat, but I like their designs and stuff. I love their character designs, and I love their monster designs. So Kingdom Hearts was the first action game that had that kind of quality of JRPG enemy designs that you just didn't see in other action games. So really, really love Kingdom Hearts 1. Didn't play Chain of Memories because I didn't have a Game Boy. And then I got to Kingdom Hearts 2. And Kingdom Hearts 2 was one of the only games my parents actually got for me at like a full price. When we were kids, like we just never got games at full price. But my parents, like, it wasn't my birthday or anything, but my mom like let me pre-order it and I got it day one. And I played through the whole thing, and I liked it, but it was kind of disappointing. If you play the original Kingdom Hearts 2, it's really easy. It's super, super easy to the point of, like, you can literally just mash X and you'll win. While Kingdom Hearts 1 it's actually fairly difficult even now. Like, I went back to play that game.
Yeah.
It's still pretty hard and kind of unfriendly. So Kingdom Hearts 2, it kind of like, oh, well, Kingdom Hearts 1 was too hard for the kids. So let's crank down the difficulty a lot. And on top of that, I hadn't played Chain of Memories, so I was kind of lost. And I didn't really understand what was going on in the story. I didn't like the whole Roxas thing, and I just didn't know what was going on. It was too easy, so it was just kind of disappointing in my mind. So recently, I've talked about it on the podcast, but I got the Kingdom Hearts 2 HD Collection Remaster. And on the HD Collection Remaster thing was this game I've literally wanted since I played Kingdom Hearts 2. Since I was really into Kingdom Hearts 2, I would go on fan sites and try to learn about this weird copy that had come out in Japan about a year later called the Final Mix. And I was like, oh, what's this Final Mix thing? The Final Mix has all new Keyblades. It has new bosses. It has new... it doesn't have any new worlds, but it does it modifies a lot of the things. And and you can also fight all 13 of the Order members. So there's a ton of secret bosses, ton of new... it's just I don't know, it's just a huge reworking of the game. They reworked a lot of the stuff. It was this game that I always wanted and never was able to get my hands on it. So when this came out in the PS3 HD collection, this is literally a game I've been waiting probably as long as Kingdom Hearts. It's the amount of time I'm waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3. And so I was kind of hesitant to play Kingdom Hearts 2 again because I was I wasn't super thrilled at the first time I played it. But people kept talking about this thing called Critical Mode. And I was like, okay, I'll play Critical Mode. This game's supposed to make the game much better. Critical Mode on Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix makes Kingdom Hearts 2 the best game I've ever played. Ever. Hands down. It makes the game... It does one of the coolest things I've ever seen with a difficulty. So most difficulty, what they'll make the enemies harder. They'll make them hit harder and just have higher health, and that's the end of the story. And make you have lower health. And that's just how most hard modes go. There's some other games that do some kind of cool stuff, like Crisis had kind of some unique difficulty curves. But what Kingdom Hearts 2 does, so the enemies hit harder, you have far less health, but what they do is they give you a ton of abilities, up front. So they greatly overpower you, but you can die really quick, which is super weird and not something I've seen in a game before. Because usually in hard modes you're just weak, but in this one you are a freaking god. But you had to be so careful because if you even get hit a few times, you're dead immediately. So basically, you get to play you get to use all of these amazing abilities. You get to actually see. It's clear that this is what they wanted the game to be originally because it makes sense. The attacks you do and the skills you get, instead of just being oh, I just use them and everything's dead. They actually have very specific uses. And it looks like this is kind of their original intention, and somebody told them to tone it down. So. It kind of makes Kingdom Hearts 2 instead of this really easy game, this really complex action RPG with stylish action, and it's still got all the cool Disney stuff. And this time I actually had gone through the Chain of Memories and 358/2, so I understood the story this time. It was just it was such a good experience, and yeah. So right now I don't even I'm not even that excited for Kingdom Hearts 3 because I just know it's not going to be as good as
It's not going to be that.
It's not going to be that good. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And that's all I have to say about Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. It's effing amazing.
I like that idea of being, because it almost sounds and you said this about Bloodborne, this is part of the reason why you like Bloodborne, and I was actually thinking about this kind of while I was playing Resident Evil this past week, is you said you like Bloodborne because any enemy can kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's almost what it sounds like this is. It's yeah, you're overpowered, but you still need to be careful of everything. It's not not the normal game where it's just oh, it's just a little guy, whatever, let's hit X and we'll move on with our lives.
Yeah, so this one, you have to block and parry, everything. You have to pay attention. It's just...
Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's a game that forces you... That's not just hard for the sake of being hard. They've, completely rebalanced the game to be this difficult.
That's kind of cool. I like that idea.
It's very cool.
That's on that 2.5 collection?
Yeah, it's on that 2.5 collection.
Okay.
You should get the 1.5 collection as well.
Yeah, I've seen both of them for $15, and I've almost done it a couple times, which I don't know.
You know what? Actually, I wouldn't get the 1.5 collection. You should watch Chain of Memories and 358/2 though, the movies that came in 1.5 before you play 2. It's a lot of work. It's a few hours worth of watching cinematics and stuff, but it makes Kingdom Hearts 2 amazing. And yeah, yeah.
This is why this is why in my mind I'm not excited about Kingdom Hearts anymore. There's too much. There's too much crap. There's too much stuff. I don't want to have to watch the movies. I don't want to have to read the comic books or read the books or whatever. I want to be able to play the games and know the story, the full story, and the books and stuff can be your side stuff, but that shouldn't bleed into the mainline game. In my mind, a universe should be structured like Star Wars, where if you watch the films, you got the whole story. Yeah, you can hear what Han Solo was doing that time. He didn't see him, but
Yeah.
that's not what Kingdom Hearts is. Kingdom Hearts is like, here's intricate parts of the story that change the dynamic of this franchise, but you have to watch this very obscure movie to find it.
Well, that's true, but you can get completely caught up. I guess they're releasing one more collection, but in those two collections, you can be completely caught up outside of one game with the entire series. So like that's the whole point of that 1.5 and 2.5 collection is to get people who kind of like you. It's like
I guess that
I
makes
don't
sense
want
in buying the collections, but
yeah, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it, for sure. And then there's the other games included as well. So yeah.
all right, Kingdom Hearts, best game of all time. Kingdom Hearts 2, sorry.
Kingdom Hearts
best game
2
of all-
final mix. Gotta say final
All
mix.
right, I cheated the hell out of my number one game.
Yeah, I know. You announced it last time.
Yeah, I did. My number one game is Halo, and again I wrote parenthesis 1 through 4 parenthesis 2 best. Seriously though, my top 4 games of all time would, well, maybe not top 4, for sure top 3 would be Halo, Halo 2, Halo 3, bar none.
Really?
And again, just so much of it goes back to kind of a combination of everything I talked about with the other ones. It has that experience moments in my mind, like Rock Band 2. It has kind of, again, some of that like first experience with some different things like I talked about with Resident Evil 4, but just, I don't know, these games just like took me from somebody who, in my mind, this is like where I went from like, okay, this is somebody who I just really like playing video games to like, okay, I need to play video games all the time. If this is what a video game is, I need to be doing this at all times. Like,
I'm glad you're successful now, because that could sound like the start of like a downward spiral.
oh god, that could sound so horrible. It's a good thing that I'm like have a full-time job and I'm married and graduated college after saying that. But anyway, yeah, just starting. I mean, even starting with Halo 1, like I got Halo 1 pretty much like 3 weeks after the Xbox launched. Like I got my Xbox within the first month. I don't think it was like first day or anything, but just I got that game and like I took it home and I was like, holy crap, this is what I wanted games to look like for so long, and this is what it should have been, and this is what games should be like, and it played so well. And just even that first one with like some of the story notes it hits, that it's like the humans fighting against this like oppressive alien race, and then you throw in the Flood that had this very distinctive turn to the entire game and turned it into almost a horror game in there in the middle of it in a couple scenes. I mean, there's some genuinely shocking moments in Halo 1 that again the series kind of got away from as you kind of defeated the Flood, but just that first game, like just it was so crazy, and then just that gets you so invested in the story that just even 2 or 3 again just get to that point where it's just like I want to keep going, and then 3 kind of wraps up where I stopped caring about Halo. Because after that I got to the Kingdom Hearts level where it was like, oh yeah, and remember this character from the book, and oh, this little like we'll make this little like side reference to this person that you probably don't know about unless you read the comic book. Like just as soon as stuff gets to that, I'm out. And that's kind of what happened. Like I still played Halo 4, it was still great. And I played Reach and ODST and all that stuff, but just those first 3 have that like very specific spot for me. And just the way that multiplayer worked, like my best friend in middle school literally came over to my house every single day and we played tanks and snipers on Blood Gulch every single day for probably, I'm not even kidding, for like months.
Oh jeez, yeah.
Like to the point where my mom was like, you guys, like, do you need a new game? Like, are you bored of this yet? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But just, and then like that evolved into, again, like getting into high school. Like we used to go to one of my friend's house and like, this is how cool I was in high school. His parents would like go away for like a Saturday night, and we would bring over like 4 TVs and like 18 of us and set up a giant Halo LAN party in his house, and like there'd be like 18 of us, and we'd like set it up so you'd have like one team upstairs and one team downstairs with like 100-foot like Ethernet cord connecting the two. And like I specifically remember sitting in his basement like just yelling curse words up the stairs at people above me, and like, oh my gosh, it was like the craziest thing ever. And I would honestly say, like, if you take Halo 1 through 3, I would be shocked if I spent any less than 1,000 hours on those 3 games.
Really?
No, because they're like literally like, I remember Halo 2 came out. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, so we had Wednesday off. And I remember I had 2 of my friends spend the night, and my mom drove us to GameStop at midnight, picked up Halo 2, the 3 of us.
Oh, that's cool.
Sat up until like 4 in the morning playing it. Woke up the next morning at 10. They stayed at my house until 11 o'clock the next day, and we just played that game for like 24 hours straight.
That is kind of cool. That's pretty sweet.
So it's just like I have all these moments that are like just focused around Halo, and like I don't know, there's just it's so good and has such an awesome place, and just the multiplayer was just so much fun, and just the way that you could customize it. I mean, we would just sit there and like make up game modes and just like the stupidest stuff. And
Yeah.
it was so much fun, and I just like in my mind nothing will come close to the experiences I've had with Halo.
That's what I'm actually kind of worried about. That's like I kind of want to end this on. It's like I do think that there's ever going to be a game that's your number one besides
Like,
Halo, or is that
it's always
such a
possible.
yeah?
But see, again, I think like in my mind and looking at my top five, it's like you've got Halo, which is just genuinely like a huge like community thing for me. You've got Final
Yeah.
Fantasy X, which that one's kind of the outlier here, but Rock Band 2, again, like it's memory based. Resident Evil 4, that one's kind of similar, but like Gears of War, again, it's like most of these things in my mind when I think of like good games, it's like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. And you kind of made an interesting point, like looking at like this new generation. You said Bloodborne was number 2. For me, I don't think I have anything from the PS4 on here.
Yeah.
Oh, I take that back. I have Rocket League.
No, I can understand that though. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I feel like I don't know, just kind of like bookend this. So I think like high school is probably like the best time to play games is like in high school
Yeah.
because you can spend so much time and like I think just now as an adult, like you don't really you don't really invite your friends over to play video games anymore. It's just not a thing you do.
Yeah.
Especially not like on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or something like that. Because everybody's got like responsibilities and stuff. So I'm and kind of like with like Kingdom Hearts 2, it's like I mean, it's like it's got this sort of Disney nostalgia aspect, and I played it in high school, and the series meant a lot to me because I played it when my family was around too, and so my sisters are big fans of the series as well. So I just don't know, maybe just because of that nostalgia aspect and the fact there's so many memories associated with a lot of these games, the top 100, it's just like I can't separate the game itself from those memories. So I'm always kind of worried,
Yeah.
like, am I ever going to play the best game of all time, or have I already played it?
Yeah. Well, and again, and even thinking about that, like I'm looking at my list. The only game in my top 20 that I've played in the last 3 years was The Last of Us.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, my top 25 is all 3 years plus.
yeah,
I mean, there's a couple that are close, like Heavy Rain, Red Dead Redemption are still like last gen, but like most of these are older games, and they're just games that I have that really fond memory of.
yeah. I don't think it's because games are getting worse. I think it's just because we're at a different time in our lives when games, like, as much as we have like a game podcast and games can still be fun, they're not like essential to our lives. I think like they
Yeah.
are at like that certain period in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're both at the point where it's like much more like, oh yeah, we talked about this with Splatoon. Like I bought Splatoon, I love Splatoon. I played it for like 2 weeks and it's pretty much been on the shelf since.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, I put 20, 30 hours into that. That is a ton of time at this point. Whereas 10 years ago, 20 hours is nothing.
Yeah, and the thing too is like you're thinking about the time associated with it. It's like, yep, I put my 20 or 30 hours. I have work and stuff, and I got, not homework to do, but you have work that kind of follows you home and stuff like that. So the amount of time you spend on games is really important. But back then it's like when you just don't have any of that restriction. It's just
Whatever.
yeah.
I can stay up till 4 in the morning playing Roller Coaster Tycoon and nobody's going to be mad at me and nothing will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you could do that now. I mean, you're an adult, you can do that. It's just you're going to have a shitty day at work the next day.
Yep. All right, well, that does it for our top 100. Of course, the whole list will be on our website, which is darksiderspodcast.wordpress.com. You can go there and check it out if you're curious about the rest of them. We didn't talk about most of them, but that was kind of fun just to kind of talk about some of the games that we've played before, kind of our favorites. So hopefully you enjoyed that. We'll be back with normal episodes. We haven't done a normal episode in a while between this and Paris Games Week. We'll have a normal
No.
episode next week. I know I've been playing a ton of games I'm excited to talk about, and I know you've played a couple.
Yeah,
as
I don't think
well.
we're even having normal Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have a normal episode because we have so many games that we've been playing that we just like haven't talked about at all. Like I'm really excited to talk about Until Dawn and then talk about how shitty Castlevania is.
But Castlevania is so good. And I played my first mobile game ever, so that's exciting too.
So expect a lot of games we played next week.
Yeah, but we'll be closer to a normal episode next week. But of course, you can follow us, Darksliders _pod on Twitter.
Yeah, it's the same thing it's been for 33 episodes.
I forgot. Darksliders_pod on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, all of that fun stuff that we're required by law to say. But yeah, we will see you next week.
See ya.